Hello and welcome to this special edition of the show coming to you from our Asian Broadcast Centre in the Malaysian capital, Kuala Lumpur. The Thai government has folded in a high political drama where the Constitutional Court dissolved the ruling party and its coalition partners, leaving a power vacuum in the country. The former government considers the move tantamount to a judicial coup. And before we speak with leaders on both sides of the conflict, we go to David Hawkins, our reporter on the streets of the Thai capital. David, first of all, I guess the big question everyone's asking, who's in charge? Who's running the country?
Actually, in a word, nobody's in charge of the country right now. The Prime Minister's been deposed, but that situation shouldn't last for. Our party will reconstitute itself under a new name, Thailand Party, and they will choose, because they have a majority in the parliament, they will choose a new prime minister, and that's likely to be a man who is the deputy prime minister in the former government, Chanarankun. Now, so really not a great deal has changed in the sense that the People's Power Party, under a new name, will make up the new government.
David, of course, the presence of people on the streets from both sides has been quite high on and off. Who basically, I mean, what risk is there of violence escalating? What chance is there this could slip into greater violence?
Well, there's a lot of concern about that. Now, the red shirts, as they're known, the pro-government forces who have been in the streets, there's been a lot of concern about them clashing with the people here called the yellow shirts. The yellow is the color of the royalty here. There have been concerns about clashes between these two groups. There was a grenade attack at the other airport earlier today in which one person was killed, and it's believed that the red shirts were responsible for that. Now, but so far there hasn't been that much violence. There hasn't been that much interaction between the two groups. It remains to be seen just how the red shirts will take the news of today and whether or not they will end up mixing it up with the anti-government forces.
All right, David, of course, uncertain times. We'll stay in touch with you. Stay safe on the streets of Bangkok. Thanks for being with us. Well, today we ask, is the end of democracy there in Thailand? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. Log on to livestation.com/AJE and enter the chat room, and then you can take part. We also welcome your phone calls on the show. In a moment, we'll speak with the top leader from the opposition Democrat Party, which has now successfully brought the elected government to its knees through the courts. But first, we turn to Chathorong Chaisang, the former Deputy Prime Minister of Thailand and a top leader in the party that was the ruling in the country until a few hours ago. He joins us now from Bangkok. Sir, glad to have you with us. I guess you see today's events as a coup. I'm wondering why, considering the opposition says there's evidence to prove that there was bribes were taken. There's video evidence.
Today, the fact that the Constitutional Court ruled that the party must be dissolved caused the government to be ousted. The problem is not with the convict. The problem is with the Constitution. The Constitution itself is undemocratic. Its content is not correspondent with the principle of democracy and rule of law.
If you feel that there was an issue with the Constitution, why was there no effort to change it rather than letting things get to a crisis level and letting the government be dissolved by the courts? The coalition government party decided not to amend the Constitution, and it has waited for too long. So now the Constitution has been functioning, and it has already functioned in the way that it was designed earlier, and that means to weaken the parties and political parties system in Thailand. It has accomplished so far. But the problem is the Constitutional Court decided to choose to have the convict today, right, in the midst of the crisis of the country, while this country needs a government to solve the problem, to solve the political crisis. So we had an email.
So we can see that the Constitutional
Sir, if I may put an email to you that we had from a viewer that wrote in from Belgium, from Brussels. Atorntip Tulyanond wrote in saying, the PPP and 2 other coalition parties have been dissolved due to electoral fraud charges, yet there is already talk of reforming a new government with the same coalition partners. Do these politicians realize they no longer have the legitimacy or moral authority to rule?
Well, it depends on the parliament to decide. The majority of the parliament will decide who will be the prime minister and who will form the government. So far, we can say I think that the ruling today is illegitimate because of the content of the constitution. But all parties in this country accept the outcome of the ruling. But the parliament is still have legitimacy to decide who should be the prime minister. Some people might propose that there should be a national government, non-partisan prime minister, and national government. But that is non-constitutional. That's extra-constitutional. That can be done only through a coup d'etat. We oppose that. And we think that if we want to preserve democracy, we should let the parliament to decide. And if the parliament decides who is the prime minister, then that person must be the prime minister.
Now, Minister, what danger?
Even though there is some minority oppose.
Right, sir. What danger is there while the country is without a government, while there are people on the streets? What danger is there that the country could slip into extreme violence, perhaps even civil war?
Well, I hope not. Now there is still a government. The person who are not banned from politics can still be a caretaker of the government until there is a new government. The PAD has already announced that they will cease the rally at every place. So there's no risk for a confrontation.
Sir,
now.
Right. So there's been the army.
People on the other side.
Right. Well, I could say the army has been very much on the fence during this. The army has not really got involved. To what extent do you read that as a sign that the army is siding with the opposition alliance, or at least taking the side of the king? What's your reading on how the army has behaved?
The army tend to take side. At least they have sympathy for the PAD. And the fact that they decided not to do anything when there was illegal activities done by PAD proved that they want the situation to get worse and worse. And that has already happened.
If I may put an email question to you, sir, that came in from Tapani Nanta Visai here in Bangkok in Thailand. He wrote in by email, or she wrote in by email saying, given his polarizing nature and prior conviction on corruption, what does Thailand have to gain from former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawat's incessant involvement in the PPP and Pheu Thai party?
Well, people look at this issue differently. Some people like the fact that former Prime Minister got involved with the PPP. Some people dislike that. But to what extent he is involved is still a question. So far, I think the PPP, now the PPP doesn't exist, but the former PPP can also do their job by themselves.
Well, Minister, I want to thank you very much for joining us, sir. It was good to have you on the show, and we'll, of course, stay in touch with the story taking place in Thailand. Thank you. Right. Well, we have to pause for a break here. Now, when we return, we'll speak with Ambassador Kasit Piromia from the Democrat Party, which is part of the opposition alliance, to get the other side of the argument in Bangkok. Let me remind you, you can take part in the conversation with your questions and comments by logging on to livestation.com and entering the chat room. You can see the debate taking place there, and we'll be right back with more.